All right. Okay, we're going to start the webinar now. Welcome to the second round of Smart Scale, the public workshop. My name is Lucinda Shannon, and I'm a Transportation Planning Manager with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. I'm going to go over some brief housekeeping notes and then introduce tonight's workshop. If you can, yeah, thanks. We will be recording this webinar, including any typed correspondence. All participants are automatically muted. You will have two ways to ask questions or raise points for discussion during this presentation. You can use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your screen to type a question. Moderators will monitor this section and respond either live by responding to your question as part of the presentation or by typing a written response to your question. If you would like to speak to the group, please raise your hand using the feature at the bottom of your screen. The facilitator will unmute you when we are ready for you to ask your question. Make sure that you are unmuted on your computer. This feature is located at the bottom of your screen and looks like a big microphone. If there is a red diagonal line through the microphone, you are on mute on your computer. Click on that once to make sure you are unmuted on your local computer. Tonight's workshop will cover the projects being considered for submission by the City of Charlottesville and Albemarle County for round 4 of Smart Scale funding. Smart Scale is Virginia Department of Transportation system for selecting projects for funding. In the Charlottesville-Albemarle Metropolitan Planning Area, we have 16 proposal slots. The TJPDC, the MPO, the city, and the county each have 4 slots each. The final applications will be submitted between June 1st and August 3rd. There's approximately $20 million available for projects in the Culpeper District and an additional $500 million in the State High Priority Fund, which is competed with statewide. Tonight we have Jeanette Janiczek, UCI Program Manager with the City of Charlottesville, Kevin McDermott, Principal Planner and Transportation with Albemarle County, and Daniel Butch, Senior Planner, Transportation with Albemarle County. They will go over the proposed projects and answer questions. Nick Morrison, also a Transportation Planning Manager with the TJPDC, is helping manage the slides and webinar room. Tonight we will cover the City of Charlottesville and Albemarle County projects, and the recording from yesterday's projects on the TJPDC and MPO session is available now on the Smart Scale Workshop website page. Each project will be introduced, and then we will open the floor for questions from the public. Please note the cost estimates on the website are preliminary and subject to change. We will be accepting your comments through the website and email until the end of May. We hope to use our time here tonight to answer questions to help gain a better understanding of each project and ask that you submit comments and opinions on the projects via email after the webinar. Some of the projects we may sail through quite quickly and others will take more time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeanette Janiczek, UCI Program Manager with the City of Charlottesville.
All right, thank you. Good evening. So all of our projects, the 4 that we have submitted applications for, have a heavy emphasis on multimodal improvements, and you'll notice that throughout the presentation. So the first project that we have to discuss is West Main Phase 3. Phase 1 and Phase 2 of West Main have previously been funded through Smart Scale and revenue sharing grant applications. The third phase is located between 8th Street and Roosevelt Brown Boulevard / 10th Street Northwest. We're going to continue the improvements which are proposed as removing some on-street parking to reallocate that to pedestrian and bicycle facilities. We're going to improve bus shelters along this corridor. Pedestrian crossings will be improved with bump outs and meet the latest ADA requirements. We're also focusing on the aesthetics and safety of the corridor, ensuring that we're designing for the human scale to make the pedestrian and bicyclist experience improved. So we'll be looking at adding different types of street furniture, adding interpretive signage, enhancing landscaping, using different treatments of the pavement to break that up and to delineate this is a pedestrian facility. We're also looking at replacing the signal at Roosevelt Brown Boulevard as well. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that we're focusing on the safety, pedestrian access, and bicycle access, and we're currently estimating the project to be $7.9 million. Are there any questions or comments? Really questions, hopefully.
Okay, so we have one attendee has raised their hand, and it's Peter Krebs. Peter, we're going to unmute you, and you should be able to talk now.
Hey, thanks for doing this, and thanks for stopping by tonight, Jeanette. I'm wondering if broadly in any of the West Main suite of projects, if you've considered doing any tactical urbanism to allow people to see on the ground what you're talking about doing on paper. Thank you.
Yes, no, we haven't done any demonstration projects for this. We are planning a public hearing so that we can discuss certainly phase 1 and phase 2.
So we also have some questions in the Q&A box. Nancy O'Brien is asking, what kind of trees are you planting?
We are planting a selection of red maple, American hornbeam, Kentucky coffee tree, sweet gum, black gum, London plane tree, swamp white oak, willow oak, and American elm.
And Peter Ohms is asking, what are the extents of funding status on the previous West Main Street phases?
We've received funding for both phase 1 and phase 2, so we're considering that fully funded. We are going to go through a value engineering process as well for the whole corridor to ensure that we're constructing it appropriately and providing, you know, the impact that we're looking for at a reasonable cost.
And Beth Cohn is asking, with the reallocation of parking, will additional parking facilities be provided?
No, that has been explored through our economic development department. So they're looking at possibly creating agreements where there's shared parking with private facilities. There has been discussion of looking at the Amtrak, I believe, parking lot. They're looking at garages, but nothing's been funded and nothing has been identified as a possible project.
Okay. Mike Stoneking is asking, would you consider retaining the right turn slip lane from West Main onto Ridge McIntyre?
No, I don't believe so. That's phase 1, and that is allowing us to create a little pedestrian plaza with seating. It takes away the conflict. It makes it easier for pedestrians to cross. It takes away the unusual aspect of that intersection, so it's safer for drivers, for pedestrians, and for bicyclists.
Okay. Michael Fraser is asking, how has the construction phase been handled for existing businesses to ensure access by customers?
What we're considering doing, we have not fully vetted this, is taking away the off-street parking during construction and allowing us to phase it and to move construction from side to side so that we can still maintain access to all the businesses. We do understand that that is imperative, that there is no way we could simply close one side of the street for a month or even a day. So that is something we're going to ensure is maintained, is access to businesses. And just for the public walking through the corridor.
Great. So I think we're ready to move on to the next project, Preston Ave and Grady Ave.
Okay, wonderful. This is another streetscape project. It's reconsidering the unusual intersection of Preston Avenue, Grady Avenue, and 10th Street. So the current concept that we're considering is essentially shifting Preston Avenue further south so that it lies with 10th Street and creating what amounts to, I would guess, a driveway or a small road to serve the businesses, which would be the Seaville Coffee and Martin's Hardware. And what we're trying to do here is simplify it to one signal, which would be at 10th and Preston now to the south. And it would allow for enhanced pedestrian access, so there's less crossings, and it would also simplify it for the bicyclists. So 10th Street would be improved to handle those right turns that coming from the downtown mall area would now need to take a right to get back onto Preston. Let's see, so new green space is certainly going to be added. Again, this is conceptual. We're just showing that we're ensuring access. This could be reimagined to a degree. And we are currently, if you go to the next slide, estimating this project to be 6.1 million. And again, we're addressing safety, pedestrian access, and bicycle access.
Okay, so we have a few questions. The first question is from Nancy O'Brien. She's asking, while construction is ongoing, how will you protect parking in the adjacent neighborhoods?
So this is a very conceptual project. I'm assuming that you're talking about we would not be taking away parking within the neighborhood or the residences. We would certainly be maintaining access during construction. We have a permit process that would allow for protecting neighborhood individuals parking on their street during certain times. That's about, I guess, all that I have to say about that right now.
Okay.
We'll consider that in the future. Yeah.
The next question is from Valerie Long, and she's asking about, for Preston, Grady, other concept plans for this area have been shared with the city that many of the area neighborhoods feel are much better. Why was this plan, which seems more impactful, pursued instead of these other plans?
Well, I guess I would ask which ideas or concepts are we talking about, the ones that Place has considered, or it would be helpful to know what other options. I know we have Kyle on the line, who's also the project manager, if you wanted to answer this question.
Yeah, Jeanette, I can answer this. I think there's several different aspects we were looking at when we put this concept together. How does the intersection function operationally? It was one of those, as well as bike and pedestrian features. And then the last one was access management. Each of the concepts we evaluated favored each of those components a little differently. I think the one we settled on was the best approach for those three components holistically. And that's kind of our thought process in terms of why that concept design was chosen and why we intend to move forward with it.
So a follow-up question from Valerie Long is, would you be willing to start with a community engagement process first before taking this project further?
I think we fully intend to have some more community engagement on the project to the extent that the concept design will change drastically is to be foreseen, I guess. I don't think we intend to reevaluate our options completely. But yes, there will be aspects of this that are certainly open to the public going forward.
Thank you. Chris Henry is asking if a traffic study has been conducted on this intersection.
Yeah, we have a study from the last round of Smart Scale that was conducted back in 2018. We haven't completed a study since then, but one has been done in the past 2 to 3 years.
And the next question is from Paul Josie. What is the cost? Does the cost include the future green park space? If so, what is that?
I'm not familiar with the park green space that's being referenced. With this project, we do intend to open things up a little bit. You'll likely see some wider medians and more green space. As Jeanette mentioned, this plan is still very conceptual, so the cost should include that, but more to come on that.
Okay. The next question is from Mike Stoneking. Will you entertain a workshop involving Place PLACE Design Task Force, area property owners, and other constituents to perhaps reimagine this?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we are open to public engagement on this going forward. I think like we've seen with a lot of our smart scale projects in the past is we'll likely submit the application as is. And if the project's funded, we'll have a more robust public engagement process once the project actually starts up.
Okay. The next question is from Lloyd Snook. How many trips now go on Preston from downtown past Washington Park to the west and vice versa? They are all going to be put into a sharp right or left turn at the light instead of just moving through. I guess that's more of a comment.
Yeah, we do have some traffic figures that I'd be willing to share. I don't have that information available right now, but I can certainly get that to you.
And Nancy O'Brien has a comment. Our neighborhood has been overrun during the Hospital Roosevelt Brown construction, making it difficult for the residents. I think this is about parking. Maybe when you're doing the construction, parking is removed and then people go into the neighborhoods for parking.
Yeah, as Jeanette mentioned, there is a permit process in place in the city that area residents can go through, and it's something that we can evaluate once we get closer to that construction phase. I know that's something we're doing on a lot of our projects, and certainly carry it over to this one if we get there.
The next question is from Chris Henry. How was RKK selected as the design consultant? Were other consultants considered?
So I believe our RKK was procured through our on-call contract with the city to handle this work. It was before my time with the city, but I believe it was handled with our on-call contract.
Okay. Michael Fraser is asking, roughly how long do these projects generally take once a final decision is made? And a related question, when will the final decisions be made about which projects will be funded on this cycle?
Yeah, so to answer that second question first, I believe we're looking at early next winter is when we'll get a preliminary decision on if these projects are funded or not. From there, you're looking at anywhere from 4 to 6 years before the projects begin, and some additional two years or so after that, at least until the project goes to construction. So pretty substantial amount of time before you would actually see boots on the ground starting construction on any of these projects.
Okay, so we have a lot of questions coming in, and we also have a lot of projects to go through. We're going to make sure that everybody's comments and questions are heard either through this webinar or after the webinar. So what I'm going to ask is if maybe Kyle can start answering the questions in the chat box, and we can move on to the next project while that's happening. And then if we have time at the end, we can come back, or we will make sure to get in touch with you and answer your questions via email or the website. So we're going to move on to the next one.
Okay, great. So the third project that we're applying for is Emmett Street Multimodal Phase 2. This is going to be located between Arlington Boulevard and Barracks Road. It ties in two previously funded smart scale projects. So we have round one, the Emmett Streetscape, which is currently getting ready to go into right of way. And then we have round two, Barracks and Emmett intersection. The idea is to maintain the existing median, turning lanes, and 4 vehicular lanes. So what you see out there today would remain. The changes would be on the east side of Emmett. We'd be creating a 6-foot wide planting strip to protect the 6-foot wide bike lane and a 10-foot wide shared use path. On the west side of Emmett, we'd be creating a 1.5-foot wide planting strip to protect a 5-foot wide bike lane and a 5-foot wide sidewalk. Both of those would be raised, so separated further from vehicular traffic. Going to the next slide, we're showing that the estimated cost is $4.5 million for this project. And again, we're improving safety, pedestrian access, and bicycle access.
Okay,
So-
thanks. We'll open it up to questions. And I don't see any questions. Wait. Did we get, yeah, we did. Okay. Nancy O'Brien is asking, are there any trees along East Emmett? Or Emmett?
Are there any trees along East Emmett?
Or it might just be Emmett. It was,
Are we maintaining the trees within the median might be the question. That's within the public right of way. The other landscaping I would imagine would be privately owned. So we have Amanda Ponce, who's also the project manager of this one, if she has an answer to that. Are we disturbing the median, Amanda?
So there are no trees in the median that I'm aware of currently. We would be adding some streetscaping features in that 6-foot planted buffer, that we're proposing. But no, yeah, that's it.
the next question is from Helen Wilson. How are the pedestrians protected from cyclists?
We would follow the same, separation that we're following on the east, or, on the east, Emmett Streetscape project further south. So whatever treatment we decide there to separate the bikes and the pedestrians would be the same treatment we use on this project as well.
The next question is from Paul Josie. Were overhead utilities factored into the design to allow for canopy trees?
This was very much a conceptual plan, so just kind of looking at the space between the curbs and the right-of-way. So at this point, no, we have not taken into account any sort of overhead or underground utilities. Again, this is very conceptual in nature and just kind of looking at how we can continue the bicycle and pedestrian facility to connect the two funded projects, previously funded projects.
And the next question is from Beth Kuhn. Will there be improvements for pedestrian crossing of Emmett Street?
We would be looking at crossings at the signalized intersections, so at Arlington and at Barracks at this point.
The next question is from Valerie Long. Wait, is that? Sorry, that was an old question, which we will come back to. The next question is from Peggy Van Ayers. Do you consider having 10 feet on both sides for bikes and people and then having trees on both sides? Why 15 feet on one side and 10 feet on the other?
As far as I think what I'm understanding is as far as the space provided for bicycles and pedestrians, and in large part that's because, the space on Barracks Road side is, well, the whole corridor is constrained, but it's a bit more challenging with all of the businesses on Barracks Road to be able to expand the amount of curb to curb width to be able to provide for all of those things in this entire corridor. So, we're trying to facilitate travel between the university and Barracks Road Shopping Center, and working with the space that we have.
Okay, so we're getting some messages that people can't hear Amanda. I'm thinking it's your internet. I don't know if you can dial in on the phone, or maybe Jeanette can answer some questions, but also it looks like there aren't any more questions.
Okay, because the last question, the answer to that is basically we're trying to reestablish and reallocate space within a tight, heavily developed corridor. So we are trying to maximize the amount of space that we could possibly acquire. And that is why you're a little heavier on one side with pedestrian and bike facilities, not on the other.
Okay, yeah, so let's go on to the next project.
All right, so Sorry, this is Ridge Street multimodal improvements. Again, we did a study for this. This project would be between Cherry Avenue and Elliott Avenue and West Main. So again, we're connecting two different projects that have been previously funded from Smart Scale. West Main Street Phase 1 and the Ridge Cherry intersection improvements. This comes from a study on the McIntyre Ridge 5th Street corridor. It reallocates pavement from on-street parking to improve, again, multimodal access and safety concerns. The drawing here shows 5-foot wide on-road bike lanes with a 2-foot buffer between Dice and Cherry Elliott Avenue. There's also a concept of possibly having a shared use path on one side. Let's see, we're also proposing curb extensions on the east side of the intersections with Oak Street and Dice Street to improve pedestrian crossings. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that the project's estimated at $5 million. And again, we're improving safety, pedestrian access, and bicycle access.
Great. So we have a question from Rory, and the question is the buffer solely protected by paint?
At this time, yes, we're proposing paint.
And the next question is from Peter Olms. You mentioned the possibility of a shared use path on Ridge. Is it the case that the bike lanes would go away in that option?
That I'm not sure of. If Brennan is on. I know that this would
I'm
require,
here.
Okay, good. Brennan,
Yeah, the shared use path is shown mainly from Monticello north, but in the actual EPR study that was done, in order to accomplish that, we'd have to build a parallel bridge over the railroad tracks. So that's more than likely not going to be in the application at this point. So we're not anticipating that there would be a shared use path between Monticello and Cherry as part of this application at this time.
The next question is from Kent Sushel. No parking on the street. Is there parking?
The parking would be removed on the west side, but would remain on the east side of the street. As part of the study, we had EPR look at access to all the residences and homes along that area. And all of them on the west side either have a driveway, parking behind, or are on the corner and can park on the side street. So no one in this scenario loses access to their homes. But removing parking on the west side was the only way to have enough room to actually fit in the bicycle facilities.
And Dan Huchert says, anything to help traffic flow through that area? I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll be redoing the signal at Monticello there, and we're already have the project down the road at Cherry and Ridge that was funded by the last round of Smart Scale, as well as the first round of West Main Street. So we're getting new signals basically through this whole corridor. We're also looking to minimize the access to the business right there at the intersection as well, to eliminate one more sticking point or conflict point for vehicles at the intersection. So we're going to look at optimization for this whole corridor and trying to get traffic moving as best we can. It's not going to be a level of service A. We're probably shooting for a level service of C- or D during peak hours.
Thanks. And Peter Krebs is asking, or kind of stating, the east side parking is going to be important because of the early learning center there.
And that's not going away.
Okay. All right, thanks. So we're gonna move on to the Albemarle County's projects, and we have Kevin McDermott and Daniel Butch. Kevin, go ahead.
Yes, hello, thank you. And thanks to the TJPDC for hosting this and give us an opportunity to present some of these projects that we have. So the first project we're going to be looking at tonight for the Albemarle County is an access management project on 250 from the Stony Point Road, that's Route 20, heading east up to Hanson Road. This project is really connecting the corridor, two previously funded projects in the corridor. The intersection at Route 20 was funded in the last round of Smart Scale that added turn lanes and signal improvements. Construction will be occurring on that one in the next couple of years. And then of course, the big one that is about to go into construction, which is the I-64 250 interchange, converting that to the diverging diamond. It really left this one segment of 250 as kind of a pinch point for congestion and also safety issues. You can see what we've got in this preliminary concept plan. It shows the closing of that center median throughout that section and designating specific places for left turns and U-turns to be made. And also adding some right turn lane extensions and making new connections with sidewalk. I believe what the picture we're looking at right now is just one portion of that. Is there another slide? Yeah, there. So you can see the further eastern portion of it. And you can see where there's a gap in the sidewalk on the south side of 250 that's going to get closed right in the center of that. So we think this is really going to improve the flow of traffic through this corridor and also address the safety problems. It was identified in the most recent PANTOPS plan as one of our high priority projects. You can move on to the next slide now. And of course, this shows you all the issues that it's going to be addressing, primarily safety, pedestrian access, and congestion. This was one of the higher ranked corridors for safety problems in Albemarle County. So that's pretty much the description of this project. I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Thanks, Kevin. So our first question is from Neil Williamson. Is there a transportation solution for unloading new vehicles? This work is currently done in the center median lane.
Yes, actually, we've started trying to address that already because we don't think the center lane is an appropriate place for the unloading of those vehicles to occur. What Mr. Williamson's referring to is all the dealerships there. When they get new stocks of cars, the trucks come in and often park in that median. So what we have done is on two of the roads that are perpendicular to 250. I think it's Town and Country. And maybe if you could go back 2 slides for me and I can get the name of the other one. People Place there. What we've done is we've actually designated a stretch of parking along both of those places that is for the unloading of vehicles. And we've started doing some outreach to these dealerships, asking them if they could start directing their deliveries to those places.
Okay. The next question is from Bruce Dotson. Given the level of funding available in the district and statewide, how realistic is it that any of the projects will be funded? Is there a local priority?
Yes, there is a local priority. You can actually review a priority process document on the county website. It's under Community Development Department Transportation page, and every other year we rank all the projects that have been recommended through various plans to come up with the projects that we see as the highest priority. And generally the work that we do is focused on a similar process is smart scale is done. So we look at the same types of factors such as land use, safety, congestion, accessibility, and we rank all our projects. Actually, this 250 project was ranked the third most important project in the district or in Albemarle County during the previous update to that process. And the number one being hydraulic, which we talked about yesterday. And you can go and we'll put that link up so anyone can review it, but that does show the general priority. I would say the ones that the county is discussing tonight are all in the, say, top 12 projects that that in the county we believe are our highest priorities.
The next question is from Peter Olms. A 5-foot striped unprotected bike lane seems inappropriate in this context. Any chance of a shared use path on one side or ideally both?
You know, I agree with that comment, and I think that we will continue to refine this. We'll look at a possibility for a shared use path. I don't think that a striped bike lane on a road that carries 40,000 vehicles at 45 miles an hour is appropriate either. So I think that's something that may have been drawn up in this concept that I think we're going to have to reevaluate. I agree that a shared use path would be ideal if we can do it. If not, we also are looking at parallel facilities such as on South Pantops Drive. We are also proposing as a separate project to look at restriping that to include wide bike lanes is a parallel facility to allow bicyclists to get off of 250.
Okay, in the interest of time, because we're only on the first project here, and I know we have some comments about the Raya Road intersection, I'm gonna skip down to Peter Krebs' question, and then we're gonna ask maybe Dan can type some answers to the rest of the questions, or we can come back to them at the end of the webinar. So Peter Krebs' question is, what's the status of the earlier 250/20 intersection project?
That is in the current VDOT 6-year plan, but still a few years out. I had previously heard that that may be advanced a little bit, but I think we are still 2 or 3 years out on construction from last I heard on that. We'll know more once the state releases their updated 6-year plan in the next couple months.
Okay, thanks. Do you want to move on to the next project, Kevin?
Sure. Okay, so this project, the John Warner Parkway and Raya Road intersection improvements, I'll start by saying that this project and the next project I'm going to discuss, which is the Raya Road Belvedere R-Cut, they may be able to be viewed as a single project. As you know, we only have 4 slots to submit applications in, but we're presenting on 5 projects tonight. And these two, the John Warner Parkway and the Belvedere intersections, are still being evaluated, and likely those would either be combined or we may break them out and do one or the other. We don't have enough room in our applications to do all of them. So one of these two is going to change. But the reason we're looking at the roundabout is mostly because we know that this intersection has problems currently. They were identified through a lot of our ongoing development reviews that we see in the area, including the one on the southwest or southeast corner of this intersection on the old Wetzel property. We identified that this intersection has a lot of failing movements currently, and in the future will begin failing overall. It's also got a high accident rate. I think around 8 or 9 accidents a year are occurring on average over the past 5 years. And to address that, we thought a roundabout would likely be the best option. This was, as you can see, it was evaluated by a consultant and they did agree with that finding. And so they've proposed this as a solution to that issue. You can see that it's got 2 lanes going through the roundabout north to, or on Raya Road to John Warner Parkway, and then a single lane going between the Raya Road East and into the KTEC entrance. We'd be able to take advantage of some of the publicly owned right-of-way, such as in that island between Dunlora Drive, to reduce the costs of the project overall. And you can also see that we would continue that current shared use path that goes through the intersection through this area. You can move on to the next slide. These are the preliminary costs of the project, a total of about 8.2 million. And as you can see, we're looking that it would address safety, pedestrian access, and bicycle access issues, and congestion as well. We have heard about the concerns over the wildflower meadow. There would be some impacts to that, but we believe that the wildflower meadow would be able to remain, and we'd be able to also have some additional new areas where we could plant additional landscaping to address that problem. And I'm happy to take questions or concerns.
So they've been coming in, and I think Paul Jonesy has a question for Amanda. So maybe Amanda can type in there and answer that about the Emmett Street project. And then the next question is from Patrick Punch. The 2 projects on Raya Road are very close to each other. Why aren't they considered as just one project?
And yeah, that's what I was discussing, that we may look to combine those. The thought was that when we talk about the R-cut coming up, you'll notice that the best way to address one of the movements in the R-cut would be to send them to something like this roundabout. So they may be combined into one project if we think that's the best way to go, and that it gives it value that would score well in the process.
Okay, the next question is from Rick Seaman. For the county projects, will they be brought to the respective CACs before final submission?
I don't think we'll have time to bring them to the CACs. We will be presenting these to the Board of Supervisors in June. We had talked about doing a little bit more public engagement, but unfortunately, because of the issues with the coronavirus, we have not had a great opportunity to get out to the public with these, but we will be going to the board and presenting these to give them an opportunity to review.
The next question is from Bruce Dotson. The developer of Parkway Place has proffered money or a redesign with the roundabout proposal. Does that mean that the county would choose money over improvements?
That is a possibility. Currently, the Parkway Place development has not been approved by the board yet, so we'd have to see the outcome of that. We've also talked about potentially putting some county funding towards this project, and then if it were to move forward, then we could always look to go with the cash proffer option if that were on the table.
Okay. And so we're getting quite a few questions in. I'm going to pick the ones that are most relevant to this project, and then maybe we can try to answer some in the chat feature. The next question is from Lee Condor. Why not forget the roundabout and instead make all the westbound traffic on East Raya Road turn right and use the U-turn facility for Belvedere to head south on the John Warner Parkway?
I think that's a fairly heavy movement to send up to that intersection. Obviously, like I said, these are all preliminary designs. We'll continue to work with the VDOT engineers and if there's any creative solutions we can come up with that might work better, we'll continue to look at those.
Okay. Neil Williamson is asking, with several approved and other proposed developments adjacent to this project, what level of residential development in this area were modeled?
So Currently, with the design that we have right now, we've only been looking at the existing conditions, but we do have that information. And as we move into more detailed design of the project, we will bring that information in. I think we have a lot of estimates of the potential traffic generation for those developments, and we will be using those to come up with any final design on this.
Lori Schweer is asking, does this project depend on the Raya Road Corridor study the Board of Supervisor has authorized, but that has been temporarily removed from the staff's work plan? Do you have any sense of when the study will be placed on the work plan again?
We do not know that right now. We are continuing to evaluate the budget as we speak, and probably know this fall if we're going to be able to move forward with that. But we have been looking at this intersection and the Belvedere intersection separate from that process anyway for a while, to trying to address some of these problems. And we just think that we'd rather not wait for the completion of that study before we start looking at trying to find some funding and improvements that we can do now.
Okay. And the last question, Martin Meth is asking if the traffic study that Kevin mentioned is referenced the roundabout available for the public.
I'm not sure if it's available right now. We can make it available though. When these are submitted, they do become part of the public record, and the full traffic study is there. I'm happy to provide that if it's not out there right now. And I will also say, if this is the last question we're going to take, please send in your comments, and if there's additional questions or additional information I can get you, then I'm happy to do that offline.
Yeah, there's quite a few questions. I was just going to move on to the next project, and we can try to come back to the ones, or we can answer them offline. So do you want to go on to the next one, Kevin?
Yes, please. So what we're looking at here is, like we said, just down the road from the previous project at the Belvidere intersection with Raya Road. As Belvedere has continued to develop, and the center at Belvedere, which is going to be opening very soon, right at this intersection, have continued to move forward. We recognize the need to address that traffic that is coming out of Belvedere trying to get on Raya, primarily trying to make the left, and evaluating the potential options for that. We determined that it looks like the R-cut process, or the R-cut design, would be the best option for that. So what you can see here is an R-cut. As we discussed this a little bit in our presentation yesterday, but what that would do is it removes the possibility of left turns coming out of Belvedere onto Raya, and pushes all of those movements to a right turn. And then you'd go up across the railroad bridge to the end of that median near Greenbrier Trace, I think that is, and you would make a U-turn at that place and then come back. So no more left turns coming out of Belvedere or coming out of that the church parking lot across the way. All those movements would be done by making a right, go down a little ways, and then making a U-turn. Or in the case of coming out of the church, that would go possibly to the roundabout there that we discussed. You can see there is a pedestrian crossing that would be included in there. Those work fairly well with R-cuts because you only have to go across one section at a time, or one direction of traffic at a time, and then you have a median there that you're able to get into, a curbed median, protected median, to get across to make the second turn. The loon, is they call it, where you make the U-turn up there at Greenbrier Trace, was made to fit up to a 40-foot bus, I believe you can see in that in the inset there, so that a 40-foot bus would be able to make the U-turn. And just to do that, we have to get a little bit of right away from that corner parcel right there. You can move on to the next slide here. Once again, these are very preliminary costs. I think we're going to be able to get that cost down quite a bit, but this is really addressing safety, pedestrian access, and once again, I think congestion is a very important need that we're going to be addressing for those people leaving the Belvedere development, trying to make any of those movements. They'll be able to do it much quicker with this alternative. So I'm happy to take questions.
So the first two questions are about trucks making the U-turn. Will it accommodate large construction traffic in the area, the flatbed trucks? And I'm going to combine these two. And the other one is, will the U-turn accommodate, it says CAT buses, which the center was intending to rely on for its daily visitors?
Yeah, like I said, it accommodates up to 40-foot vehicles at this time. I guess we can continue to look at that. We'll touch base with CAT. I think that would accommodate CAT buses. I'm not sure if someone in the city is able to maybe inform me whether or not CAT buses are 40 feet or larger, but we can check on that. So 40 feet is what it accommodates.
Okay. The next question, is from Stephen Crone. Does the initial construction envision any signaling, specifically to stop westbound Raya traffic to allow multiple Belvedere exits during large volume center or SOCA dispersing?
Can you go back one on this, Nick, so we can look? I'm not sure if, the other way. It doesn't look like the initial designs show any signalization. I'm sure anytime we put these in, our cuts can be signalized at the left turns or at the U-turns. So it's possible that we will continue to evaluate that. Maybe actually, if Chuck Proctor from VDOT could weigh in, if that's something that they are still looking at. I know he's on the line.
For this project, I don't think we were looking at signalization initially. It can be evaluated and added later if it's warranted.
Okay, thanks, Chuck.
Okay, the next question is from Peter Thompson. What does CAT think about this design, i.e. their ability to get in and out of Belvedere as they have promised to do for many years? And I thought there would be a signal at Greenbrier Terrace to allow safer U-turns.
Yeah, once again, we've got this so that it can accommodate a 40-foot bus. We will discuss that with CAT to see if that's ideal for them, if they can do that. And we will continue to evaluate it to see if a signal would be necessary.
And the next question is from Patrick Punch. Why is an R-cut better than a traffic light?
For a number of reasons. One, it's really a safety consideration that you remove a lot of the conflict points that you typically have with a four-way intersection. You also can remove signal delay. It allows free flow traffic on the main line, so that never has to stop instead of putting a signal in, which often, one vehicle can trigger a large volume of vehicles stopping on the main line. So it allows you to adapt that much easier. And we do also have a presentation on our cuts that talks a lot about those advantages on our Albemarle County website right now, and once again on the Community Development Department Transportation page, and you can find more information on that on VDOT's Innovative Intersections website that talks a lot about all the advantages to our cuts.
Thanks. So we still have quite a few questions. I'm going to move on to the next project with Dan Butch, and maybe we can try to answer some of them in the Q&A feature, and then we will try to get back to everybody. If we don't answer your question during the webinar, we'll get back to you afterwards.
All right, next project in Albemarle County, we have at the intersection of Old Lynchburg Road and 5th Street Extended. There's currently a study going on. The 5th Street corridor study is currently underway and is expected to be complete in the spring of summer of 2020. It's possibility to be highly recommended for a roundabout at this intersection. We've heard a lot about sight distance issues coming from Old Lynchburg, turning left onto 5th Street Extended. This would address that. This application also includes improvements to bicycle, pedestrian for at-grade ped crossings, as well as transit features to the existing bus stop adjacent to this project site. The study, which is currently still underway, would evaluate whether this would be a single or double lane roundabout. And this is, the Albemarle County Comprehensive Plan does identify transit improvements needed in this corridor. For the next slide, you could see the total cost estimate comes to $8.5 million. And again, a roundabout conversion would reduce the number of conflict points and number of crashes for this intersection to be expected at 82%. Improved access and mobility on the corridor, and will include improvements to, again, the bicycle, pedestrian, and transit features. For some crash summary, from 2014 to 2018, there were 15 crashes occurred at this intersection. And some additional background information, ongoing development in this area with Royal Fern, which is known as Albemarle Business Campus, as well as Southwood, both have assessed this intersection, which showed to be expected level of service analysis to fail. But in the TIA, a roundabout would address problems revealed. Also, additionally, for Albemarle Business Campus application has not been approved. So we don't know of any proffer money that would be applied to this project until it is approved. But in this case, prior to that, the county is looking to possibly contribute local funding towards this application. And if it is approved in smart scale, we can always work with the developer to reimburse or contribute future funds towards the project.
Okay, so we're going to open it up to questions, and I'm not sure. The first question that I'm seeing, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so I'm going to move on to David Storm's comment. I don't know how you would take a 4-lane, 2-lane each way roadway into a single lane roundabout.
Right. I mean, it was brought up during a stakeholders meeting. The corridor study will evaluate this, but they definitely don't want to take it down a level on level of service. So just leaving it open to the corridor study, but you could see in the concept that we don't have it identified yet. Okay.
Oh, wait. All right, yeah. So that's all we have for questions on this project. We can go on to the Route 2053 intersection improvements.
Okay, and the final project for Albemarle County is Route 20 and 53. This project will convert the existing signalized intersection to an innovative intersection of a roundabout, and also include a shared use path going north and south along Route 20 on the west side of 20. You can see it, the green path on the concept plan on the screen there. This was also submitted in last round of Smart Scale. But it was not funded. The recommended roundabout would have minimal right-of-way impacts and largest crash reduction, and reduce the number of conflict points again, and crashes by expected 82% as well. This intersection is also called out in the southern and western master plans for bike and ped and operations improvements. And again, on the next slide, you'll see its total cost estimate is $7.5 million. And from some history, 2014 to 2018, there were 35 crashes within a 300-foot buffer from the intersection of 20 and 53.
Okay, our first question is from Paul Josie. Per the concept design report, topography and existing utilities were not considered, yet by adding 6-inch curbs and removing drainage from the center of median to the curbs, likely all of the existing memorial trees to military casualties would be removed. If memorial trees are likely to be removed as currently shown, is it possible for another study to be developed to relocate this path along one or both sides of Route 20 where adequate right-of-way exists?
I think this topic is with the 20 South shared use path project that was mentioned yesterday. I think in this area, I'm not sure about the tree impact. I don't know if Kevin or Chuck have some more background on that.
Yeah, for this one, we weren't, actually, there's been a revision to the plan. For most of the trail through this section, it's been moved to the east side because of the creek that's runs along the west side of Route 20 from Piedmont intersection southward. And we were at the roundabout, we're crossing it over on the south side of the roundabout. But it would start at the Saunders entrance to the Saunders trailhead and head south along the east side of Route 20 and then basically turn up Route 53 for a short distance and then drop off as a connection for cyclists coming down 53. And then on both sides of Route 53. Yeah, I don't think we're impacting any trees with this project. How we would connect to the 20 South Trail would be at the Saunders Trail entrance.
Okay, the next question is from Roger Schitzigs. How is shared use path resolved versus the one in the median strip presented yesterday?
I'm not sure about which path is referenced from yesterday.
There's Route 20, there's a shared use path planned down the median strip.
I can Chuck just addressed that, yeah.
Chuck.
Yeah, I can take this one. At the 20 trail in the median ends at the intersection with Saunders Trailhead and the entrance to PVCC. South of there, the trail would jump to the outside of the road. The reason for the trail north of there to be in the median was mainly because of the conflicts at the ramp interchanges. And there's no way to safely cross those ramps for a pedestrian and bicyclist facility without putting those folks at risk of getting hit by fast-moving cars on those ramps coming on and off the interstate.
Okay. So we are past our ending time, and what I'd like to do is maybe give the speakers an option if there are questions in the queue that they feel like would be best answered now live. I want to give you guys the opportunity to do that. Otherwise, we can follow up with people after the meeting. I see Kevin furiously typing.
I can continue to address the comments that are in the queue as we are. So in writing, if people want to keep sending them there, if they don't get them now, we can reply after the meeting.
Okay. Jeanette, do you have any follow-up that you wanted? I know there were some questions that we left that were answered in the queue, but not live.
The only ones that I see that are open are related to the county. We've got 60 answered and then 5 dismissed, which is largely about Amanda. So I think we're good. If there's any questions that still need to be, answered, certainly reach out to me and I'll follow up with MPO to make sure that everything's answered.
Okay. Kevin, do you want to just stay on the webinar for longer, or do you want to wrap it up?
We can wrap it up and we can respond to these questions.
Yeah, Sandy has copied every single question, and any that weren't resolved in the webinar, she's going to send to the respective project managers either at the city or the county, so that way those can get answered and sent out to the respective question askers. So.
All right, thanks, Nick. And also thank you for running our meeting tonight. Thank you also to our presenters, Jeanette Yajnik, Kevin McDermott, and Daniel Butch, as well as all of you for joining us tonight and sharing your questions and concerns with us. We encourage you to continue to share your questions and concerns by submitting your comments using the emails listed at the bottom of the Smart Scale Workshop webpage. There's, and also on the slide, on the workshop webpage that lists all of the projects, if you scroll down to the bottom, there are email addresses for each staff person who's responsible for the projects, and you can see who to send your comments to. The public comment period will be open until the end of May, so we're looking forward to hearing from everybody and sharing those comments with the rest of the staff and the elected officials. And we're going to close the meeting.